What's going on, y'all? Welcome to the Play College Sports Talk Show. I am, of course, one half of the undisputed tag team champions of sports talk. It's your boy Stephen Box, joined as always by my co-host.
And I would be that other half, but we're just not the undisputed champs. We are the galactical, universal, intercontinental, South American, whatever you want to add, tag team champs of interactive sports talk. It's your boy 𝐂𝐏𝐈𝐒𝐒. You know who it is.
Yeah, man. I think we can just basically just make it easy for people, man. Like, if it exists, we're the champs of it. But it is. So yeah, man. So as we do every week around here, man, we talk about the biggest stories in sports, and of course, there might not be anything bigger going on right now than the NFL playoffs.
Can't think of anything.
Yeah, yeah. So let's kick it off right there, right? So, what matchup would you like to discuss first tonight, sir? Dealer's choice.
Man, I don't want to start off with what everybody want to see because that's just going to be too easy. That's a good question. Let's start off with something from the AFC.
Huh?
You know what I'm saying? Maybe what is it, the Titans and the Jags. Let's start there. That's a good place to start.
Okay.
So yeah, man, you have a matchup between a team that doesn't have a quarterback, but has one of the best running backs in the NFL, the Tennessee Titans. They've got a young receiver back. Their tight end has really stepped it up this year, right? 𝐿 been very good for them.
Uh,
Pretty solid line.
sir, I would like to just pause you for a second because
Sure.
I see you were still on last week. We've moved on to the wild card round for this week, sir. The Titans, they're nowhere to be found.
Oh, I'm tripping. You are right, bruh. It's the Jags and the
Chargers.
Chargers. Yeah,
Yeah,
my bad,
it's like
man.
I heard you say Titans, but it's like I think my brain convinced me that you said Chargers, and then you're like, one team doesn't have a quarterback, and I was like, which team is that?
My bad, y'all. I got I
It'd be
got
like that,
stuck
bro.
on
It'd be
last
like
week
that
in my
sometimes,
mind.
man.
Yeah,
Yeah, it'd
but
be
yeah.
like that sometimes.
So quick rewind.
Hit the fast forward button.
Yeah, but just rewind. We're just gonna go back to the beginning. But yeah, my bad, y'all. But Chargers and Jaguars. I still want, for some reason I want to say Titans, but Jacksonville and the LA Superchargers. So with the Chargers, you got a team who doesn't have Mike Williams, but I'm gonna let y'all in on a little secret. Mike Williams plays about as much as Anthony Davis does these days, so I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem for the Chargers. Jordan Palmer will step up like he always does. Keenan Allen will, have a good game. They'll throw the ball to Eckler. Whatever tight end has two legs and two arms that can catch will get a few passes. So they'll be fine offensively. Herbert, I'm be interested to see him here in the playoffs. What he does if he's able to, go out here against a defense that will force you to turn the ball over in the Jacksonville Jaguars, and much improving Trevor Lawrence, who is able to use those overpaid weapons uh, with great ease.
Mhm.
Um, ETN, really good running back. Um, they have a solid defense, right? They have a defense that pushed the Eagles when they played earlier in the season and several other teams. According to our representative that covers them, they've won a lot of games they should have lost. Hey, I mean, I just consider that winning games are just supposed to win, right?
Yes.
And um, I think this is going to be a good matchup. The strength of both teams, I think, are going to be their offense, but I do think Jacksonville has the edge on the defensive side of the ball. But the Chargers are no slouches. They haven't played up to their individual talent, but if there is a time in the year where it's okay to come on and start playing up to your group talent, this would definitely be that time. I'm not going to pick a winner yet, But I think that Saturday night primetime game for us is going to be really good.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game that's interesting to me, right? I mean, obviously, both of these teams are more about their offenses and their defenses. And I think looking at the rankings for these two defenses can be a little bit misleading because you have two teams that are both in the bottom half of the league defensively, but that's only if you're looking at the entirety of the season. If you were to just look at like the last several weeks, both are actually playing a lot better defense than what their rankings would indicate to you. These two teams did actually meet previously this year, back in September, and Jacksonville actually won that game 38-10. So very impressive showing from Jacksonville in that game. But I think that both teams are a lot different right now than they were back in that meeting in September. So I don't know how much we're going to really be able to gather from that. It is going to be interesting because what I think, the reason I feel like Jacksonville maybe has a little bit of an advantage in this game is their rushing attack. It's kind of middle of the road, right? But it's decent. The Chargers really don't have a running game. Uh, Austin Eckler is basically an extra wide receiver on the field. They don't really run the ball a lot per se, but he does a lot of catching out of the backfield. So they definitely utilize him, and he is a weapon in that offense. But in terms of just like straight up lining up and running the ball, they don't do it as much. Their passing offense is obviously a little bit better, but Jacksonville has a top 10 passing offense. So to me, it's like Jacksonville has the ability to bring a little bit more balance, makes it a little harder to take things away. Whereas defensively, they're going to kind of be able to key on stopping the pass. And if they do, Chargers might be in trouble. So that's why I'm kind of leaning towards Jacksonville myself.
I'm actually going to go Jacksonville as well. I've been kind of wrestling with my picks for these games all day. I am going to go Jacksonville as well. I think we got two young guys, but I just feel like the difference is going to be on the sidelines, right? On one end, we got Dougie P. The
Mhm.
other end, we got a guy that we're talking about. Brandon said that they might get fired if they don't win this game. So, and obviously that's conjecture. No one's came out and said anything, but just the fact that you can feel comfortable making that statement lets you know the difference in the trust in the coach and what he's going to do. So,
Yeah.
coaching trumps when the games are tight, definitely. And I'm going to go with Dougie P over Staley. So I'm definitely going to go with Jacksonville as well.
Yeah. And I think, when you look at the coaching, it definitely makes sense, right? Because so often, especially when you get to the playoffs, coaching makes a world of difference. And it is going to be interesting to see both of these quarterbacks, how they actually play in the playoffs. So, real quick, man, I do want to just throw out there we are going to be relaunching, haven't done it in a couple years. So, we're going to be starting fresh, but we're going to be relaunching just an audio only version of the show that will be getting posted immediately after this. So if you are joining us, if you're listening to us on the audio version of the podcast, and you would actually like to join us live, you can find us on our YouTube channel at playcollegesportstalk.com/live. And we go live every Friday night at 7:30 p.m. And we love to be able to interact with people live. So come join us over on YouTube and join us in the chat.
And that's /live, by the way.
I just kind of assume that people know that at this point, man. But maybe not, maybe not.
I don't make assumptions, sir.
So the other game that we have Saturday is, of course, my San Francisco 49ers against the Seattle Seahawks. Um, a game we've already seen twice this year. The 49ers won both of those games. Second game was a little bit closer. It was a one possession game, but you know, I don't really feel like that game was ever really truly close. Seattle just kind of got a score at the end that made it look a little bit closer, but that game really was never in too much doubt. Do you see any possibility here for Seattle to pull the upset?
So there's always a possibility, right?
Right.
I mean, just being real, there's always a possibility.
Always, yeah. Any given
Am
Sunday.
I expecting it to happen? The answer to that question would be no. Would I be shocked if it happened? The answer to that question would be indubitably. I do feel like San Francisco is a tier above where Seattle's at. But at the same time, you never know until you hit the field. But if I'm looking at the game, I'm picking who's going to win now. I'm confident in saying, the 49ers should win this game with, relative ease, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, and if, for anybody who wants to hear my full breakdown of this game, you can obviously go and check out the NFL Matchup Madness video on our YouTube page from this past Tuesday, where I gave a more in-depth analysis of this game. But one thing I didn't get a chance to talk about on there that I'll just bring up here real quick is obviously a lot of people are kind of centered around this idea of, okay, Brock Purdy has looked good so far, but this is going to be his first playoff game, and how is that going to actually end up looking for him? And further complicating that question is the fact that they are predicting torrential downpours uh, in the Bay Area this weekend during the time of the game. So to me, I look at this and I go, okay, the rain will be interesting, right? I think that teams who can run the ball successfully tend to fare better in the rain. So I actually think that could help the 49ers a little bit more. But, you know, I do have to kind of go back to that poor game we had in week 1 against the Bears in the rain and, wonder, like, did we learn from that? Like, did that help us kind of prepare for this environment a little bit? But when I look at Brock Purdy in his first start, I think he has a couple things going for him. Number one is he understands that he doesn't have to do it all, that he has a lot of weapons around him. Number two is the fact that he's playing at home, which would definitely help. And to me, possibly the biggest thing is the fact that this is a team he's already played against. So I think when you have that familiarity with somebody, when you already kind of know what they do, the speed of it's not going to take you by surprise. I think it allows you to kind of settle in and play a little bit better. So that's why I'm a little bit optimistic as a fan about his first playoff start here.
I mean, personally, I don't think he's going to have that good of a game, but you have enough around him where that it's not going to matter, right?
Yeah.
I'm not expecting Brock Purdy to go out and do anything amazing in his first playoff game. Anybody in their first playoff game is going to have jitters. They're not going to play as well as they normally play. But that's the thing. You're better enough than that team where that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You can go out and run the ball. You have 3 or 4 guys who can run the ball. Push come to shove, you can do a few screen passes to your wide receivers, even hand it off to Debo.
Yeah, look, we've been winning playoff games with Jimmy Garoppolo doing next to nothing for years. So
Exactly.
yeah, so that moves us over to the Sunday slate. So uh, obviously your Philadelphia Eagles are off this week, so y'all won't be playing as well as the Kansas City Chiefs. They also have a week off as the 2-1 seeds.
On a
But
tropical island.
a team who had a shot at getting that 1 seed, the Buffalo Bills, are going to be hosting the Miami Dolphins, and we know that Tua is not going to be there. How do you see this game? I mean, again, I think this kind of goes back to what we just said about the Seattle game, right? There's always a possibility, but this just feels like such an uphill climb for the Dolphins.
I wanted to stop you there. Seattle has their quarterback in tow. Seattle has most of their team there. They have their guys. We've seen the Miami Dolphins without Tua against far less talented teams than this, and this is the epitome of taking lambs, taking them through, shearing off their wool, and then slaughtering them. Miami is being led to their slaughter. What could have been a great season for Miami has turned into you're going to get slaughtered. And that's what's going to happen. Buffalo has everything to play for. Hamlin might even be leading them out onto the field. He's been cleared to actually not play or anything, but he can work out on his own, kind of work yourself back into, whatever condition he's going to be in. We don't know what that is yet, but kind of on his own and with the team, the trainers and stuff. So he's going to probably be leading them out. That emotional high, as well as the fact that Tua is going to be standing over there, probably not even knowing what's going on the other sideline. Lambs to the slaughter. Miami has a very slight chance that they throw 5-yard screens all day to Waddle and Cheetah. If they can have Jeff Wilson come out and have a career game, if they can then have Raheem Mostert, who may or may not play, come out and have a career game as well, and somehow Josh Allen goes out and has his worst playoff game of his career, there might be a chance. But I'm going to be realistic and say this is a stone cold lead pipe lock. Buffalo wins this game thoroughly, handily, every phase of the game.
I mean, how do you really feel about it, man?
You know,
So I was trying to see, did Tua actually play in that game last month? I don't think he did.
he did not. He only played in the first one, I believe. Or if he did play, he probably got knocked out. I don't know.
Yeah, so he didn't play in this last game, and it was actually a pretty close game. Um, so I don't know, man. Like, I I, I kind of agree with
Lambs
you.
slaughter. But remember, that's in that game. Who was the quarterback?
I couldn't get it to pull up. That's what I was trying to look. So I don't know if it
Yeah,
was Teddy Two Gloves or not.
I believe it was Teddy Two Gloves in that game,
Yeah, because I tried to get it to show me who the quarterback was, but it wouldn't pull up. So
and that makes a huge difference from them starting this young guy.
so yeah, I mean, here's the thing, man. Even if Miami can put up points, right? Uh, I'm not confident that their defense can even hang with Buffalo, and I think that's gonna be the bigger problem. Now, I will say this: to me, the one place that Miami actually has a chance in this game, right, is people haven't really talked about it that much, but Josh Allen really hasn't looked that great in the second half of the season. He has actually struggled quite a bit. Uh, I think Buffalo wins this game, but there's a couple things that if they happen, I think could open the door. Now the question is, does Miami have the talent and what it's going to take advantage of those opportunities? That's where I have a little bit more doubt. But I think there is going to be some opportunities that if they can take advantage of them, they can make this a more competitive game than people realize. Just my thoughts.
That's me not saying anything else.
So a game that is truly 50-50 game in a lot of people's minds. The New York Giants at the Vikings. These teams also just recently met. The Vikings did win that game, but it took a career-long field goal for the Vikings to prevail in that game. And very important, we must mention this game is taking place at 4:30 p.m., which is past Cousins curfew.
I mean, we know the story with the Giants. We know who the Giants are. We know who they're not, right? They're the team that's going to come out. They're going to give you the work. They're going to put up strong defense. They're going to play hard. They're going to run the ball on your lot. They're not going to ask their quarterback to do the things he doesn't do well, but they are going to expect him to do the things well that he does well. They're going to hope that that's enough for them to get a victory. I think they're going to turn over primetime Kirk. I think the Vikings will be one and done. I can't say they don't deserve the number 3 seed because you are what your record says you are. I mean, we can say whatever we want, but that's the truth.
Mhm.
So they deserve. They won enough games to be where they're at. But now is when it gets to the nitty gritty, and I just don't see Kirk thugging anymore. I think we're gonna get White Dak Prescott and that's what it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I look at this game, man, like I feel what's going to be important for the Giants is you need to play consistent, right? Because here's the crazy thing with Minnesota. Unless something changed in the last game of the season, they actually had a negative point differential. Meaning, for those that don't know what that terminology means, that means that they actually scored less points on the season than their opponents scored against them. To actually have a 13-4 record with a negative point differential is absolutely insane. But what it says to me is they are very good at winning games that they have no business winning, right? So we talked about that earlier with the whole Chargers and Jags thing. But I think it actually does apply to Minnesota, right? Those are games that they really probably had no business winning. The other team should have finished them off, and they didn't. Uh, they are very good at pulling out those games. So to me, what the Giants have to do is not make mistakes. They have to not let the Vikings stick in the game. We have seen it a couple times that if you can beat the Vikings down, they fold pretty easily once they realize they can't get back in it. But you can't give them any hope because they get any momentum at all. They know how to ride it. So to me, that's where this comes down to. I do think the Giants should be able to win this game. I'm picking the Giants to win this game. Uh, I I just don't believe in Minnesota. I mean, yes, they win close games, and there's going to be that opportunity for them to win it. Still, the Giants are not vastly better than the Vikings by any means, but I do think that the Giants win this game.
Kirk Cousins is Tony Romo in primetime games.
Now, this isn't about the matchup, but I'm just going to ask your thoughts here. Obviously, the big question for the Giants going into this offseason is what are you going to do with Daniel Jones and Saquon? And the rumors are that they've already started negotiating with both of those guys in the hopes to bring them back. Do you see both of them getting like big paydays, or how do you see the Giants trying to play this?
Well, if you're the Giants, you have leverage for both guys, right? Saquon, a lot of injuries. So whatever contract you're going to do with him, you got to, you're obviously going to bring that to the negotiating table. Hey, a lot of times you've been injured. When you play, you're great, but you've had your street clothes on quite a bit, sir. Daniel Jones, you've had one really good year, not great, but really good year. And
Yeah.
the other years, not so much. So I think if you're Daniel Jones, you're probably going to take a 1 or 2 year deal, some sort of prove it type deal. Saquon, you're probably going to look for something longer term, with a little bit more stability and comfort because you also, if you're a guy and you've been hurt a couple of times, you kind of know like I want to get that money just in case something else happens, and I don't ever have that chance to get that big contract. Even though, if I bet on myself, it could be bigger. But do I want to bet on myself? Sometimes you don't want to bet on yourself, and that's the thing people need to understand. Sometimes it's okay not to bet on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, man, I think both of these guys are probably going to end up with like 2 or 3 year deals. They maybe have some like options or something like that. Uh, I think especially when it comes to Daniel Jones, that the Giants want to kind of hedge their bets here a little bit, right? They're going to try to make it to where they can get him on a 3 or 4 year deal that's actually pretty team friendly, but also make it to where if he continues to get injured, they can pretty easily get out of it. That's kind of where I see it leading.
Well, the thing with me is what are they going to sign, right? Because if you come to Daniel Jones, you don't want to pay him what it would take to pay, for a franchise tag on a quarterback, right? You don't want to do that. So if he's like, I'm not signing crap, then you're going to have to meet him or you're going to have to lose him for nothing and get nothing back. Saquon, I think you have more wiggle room. He is a running back. Why? He's a really good one when he's healthy. I mean, you can franchise tag him and say, play him the tag then and be okay with that. So, there's also that piece.
Yeah. So I mean, it'll be interesting. Obviously, we'll talk a little bit more about that during the off season, but it'll just be curious to kind of see how that goes. And don't forget, this is also Daniel Jones' first playoff game as well. So a lot of first time quarterbacks in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, but even be your first game, what Daniel Jones does will translate to the playoffs.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Uh, Sunday night, got the Ravens and the Bengals. Feel like we've seen this one before. Oh yeah, just last week. Yeah. So obviously these two teams have met twice. The Ravens won the first matchup.
With Lamar.
Yeah, with Lamar. Without Lamar, man, I don't see them having a chance. Honestly, like if
Without
Lamar
Lamar,
was
I'm
out there,
surprised
this is a
they're in the
different game.
playoffs.
But uh,
With Lamar not out there, I'm surprised they're even in the playoffs.
yeah, I think that's fair. And it just speaks to how bad some other teams played that they couldn't knock the Ravens out of that spot. But when I look at this matchup, man, I don't see it now. I think that this defense can hold Cincinnati in check to an extent. Uh, they're not gonna just go out there and just start blowing them out and everything. But if this offense can't move the ball, if this offense can't put up points, if they can't get first downs, if they can't keep Cincinnati's offense off the field for a little while, that offense is good enough to wear this defense down. But Baltimore's got a really good defense right now.
Yeah, just not a lot at the quarterback position or anything at the wide receiver position. I think they're in worse shape at wide receiver than the Giants.
They might be, and that's saying a lot.
That's so bad they cut Deshaun Jackson. That's how bad they are. He was actually on their team.
Yeah, I don't know what they got going on, man. That's rough. So, all right, I'm assuming you're taking the Bengals here as well.
Yes.
Okay. And then Monday night. Now we all know why this game's on Monday night, right? This is the two teams that pretty much everybody in America wants one or both of these teams to lose. Because everybody either hates the Cowboys or they hate Tom Brady or they hate both. So I understand why this game got put on Monday night. It's the game that everybody wants to see, right? Now the Cowboys are clearly the more talented team. The Bucks offensive line has been in shambles. Their offense has only looked good sporadically. Tom Brady is like 95 years old. And yet and still, I just can't honestly bring myself to believe the Dallas Cowboys are going to win this game because there might not be a quarterback in this league who is playing worse right now. This in the playoffs, anyways. The Dak Prescott.
Yep, Rain Dakota is not playing well. This isn't a game or just streak. He missed what 4 or 5 games. I can't remember which one. I think it was 5 games, and still led the league in interceptions. That tells you everything you need to say about how his season has went, right? And what I don't want people to do is say, "Oh, he sucks. He's not a good player because he's had a bad season." Dak Prescott could come back next year and be more like the Dak Prescott that we've seen in previous years. But for 2022-2023, he is definitely the worst playing quarterback that hasn't made it to the playoffs. Now, the thing is, which Dallas team do we get? Because there's 4 different Dallas teams, right? Let me break this down for you. There's the Dallas team who is focused, who comes to play, and they do their thing. There's a Dallas team that's focused, that comes to play, and the coaches screw it up. There's the Dallas team that comes in not really motivated, not playing well, but they get it done. And there's the Dallas team that comes in not motivated, not playing well, and the coaches play coach a trash game, and it's even worse. So, depending on the coaching and the team, because if you're playing well, you can sometimes overcome bad coaching. Philadelphia Eagles all season. And sometimes, if you're not playing well, but the coaching is doing as well, they can help put you in the right positions based on what they see from you and still, win the game. Um, it's hard to say, but I gotta say, even in my analogy, 3 out of those 4 teams are probably not gonna be well. Worst case scenario, 50% of those 2 out of those 4 probably won't win you a game. If you give me a 50% chance that Dallas is going to come out and not be the best version of themselves, and they're playing against the one guy who looks at the refs a la LeBron James and gets whatever call he wants, we already understand. If you get close to Tom Brady, if you breathe on Tom Brady, if you look at Tom Brady wrong, if you have intent in your movements toward Tom Brady, if you sneeze on him, if you frown at him wrong, if you touch any part of his garments, okay, if you look like you touched him, if the referees feel like you got close enough where you could touch him, if he flops, 15-yard penalty, automatic first down. That's the biggest thing you have to be concerned about when you're playing Tom Brady.
Listen, man, I agree with what you just said. And I told people a few weeks back when we actually played the Bucks, 49ers, that is. They had several times in that game where we hit Tom Brady, or it was kind of like a bang bang play with the defender getting to the wide receiver, and Tom Brady went crying to the referees, and they refused to give him a flag. They told him to go sit down and shut up. And I said at that moment, I was like, the NFL must have decided that the 49ers actually deserve to win the Super Bowl this year. Because otherwise, I can't think of any reason why you're actually giving us calls against Tom Brady. That's how bad the Tom Brady love is that me just watching my team get a couple of favorable calls against Tom Brady was enough to convince me that the NFL must win us to win the Super Bowl this year.
But here's the thing about that, though. You got the calls then because they had an anticipation of you playing them again when it matters. Guess who's not going to get the calls this time?
Well, man, that may very well be the case, and it may not be. My feeling is, as you always say, when Tom Brady, if you're going to play the Bucks or any Tom Brady team, you better go out and beat them so badly that the calls won't matter.
Because they are coming.
Yes.
But I am going Tampa Bay to beat the Cowboys. And I also want to throw in a caveat. The Cowboys don't win a lot of playoff games. So, it's a combination of those two things that had me picking Tampa Bay. But don't get it twisted. I want to make this clear. I want everyone out there to hear this. I don't care if it's Tampa Bay. I don't care if it's Dallas. I don't care if it's Seattle. I don't care if it's the Giants. Don't sing it next week. You just bring it.
Yeah, I feel you, bro. Like, people keep asking me, like, assuming y'all win, who would you rather play in the second round? I'm like, I don't care. Don't care.
Nor
It
should you.
makes me no difference. My only goal is to be in the NFC Championship game. And whether we are playing at the crib against somebody else or we're going to Philadelphia to play you, I don't care. As long as we're there.
And I want the smoke.
Yeah. It's Super Bowl or bust. That's what it is.
I feel the same way. I want the smoke.
Yep.
All the smoke. All of it.
So, we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be a very interesting weekend of football. I think that we may, because we all know that Jerry didn't like to do it, but we may have another coach joining the ranks of the unemployed here very, very soon. In one Mike McCarthy, because I think if Dallas goes out and loses in the first round, man, I think Jerry's at least got to think about it. I don't know if he'll pull the trigger or not, but I mean, Mike McCarthy unfortunately isn't married to anybody related to Jerry Jones, so he doesn't get the Jason Garrett treatment.
And plus, he doesn't go, All game
Clap
here.
on, clap off. So, I mean,
So,
what do you think? Do you think that could actually happen? Do you actually think they will fire him?
no,
Don't think so?
I don't think they will. No. He only gets fired under one condition. And that's if Sean Payton's coming. But see, here's something about that. I want to get into that. You got to provide compensation to the Saints to get Sean Payton.
Mm-hmm.
So, follow me this. This is a little one of those uh, outlandish theories I come up with sometimes at like 2 a.m. when I can't sleep.
Okay.
So, what if Sean Payton, like, all right, Dallas, I ain't going to get that job right now, but I wouldn't mind having that job in 2 or 3 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they actually do get rid of McCarthy.
Yeah.
It'll take a few more years. So, what if Sean Payton comes back, signs a 3-year deal with Denver or somebody else, gets the compensation out of the way, goes to another team, gets to coach a little bit, gets to figure out some different things, learn how to use different players, not having a, Drew Brees style quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe goes to Denver, get Russell Wilson. That contract comes up. Mike McCarthy still hasn't won anything, which we don't think he's going to do with Dallas because it just hasn't happened.
Right.
That contract comes up. Sean Payton's already been the Saints have already been compensated for Sean Payton now. Then we get Sean Payton in Dallas.
Mm-hmm. So, I'm actually going to go a slightly different direction here, right? So, this is what actually makes me lean towards thinking he might get fired. I don't necessarily think that Sean Payton is the target. I mean, I know they would love to have Sean Payton. I'm sure that Jerry would be willing to give up draft picks to get Sean Payton. He would back up the Brinks truck to pay him whatever he wanted. But Sean Payton has been in that building. Sean Payton knows what it's like to coach under Jerry Jones. And I'm sure that Sean Payton has absolutely zero desire to do so.
In 2 or 3
So,
years, Jerry Jones might not be making any decisions anymore.
I mean, maybe. But so here's what I will say. The reason I think McCarthy could get fired is that somebody might express enough interest in Kellen Moore that Jerry gets scared of losing him. And he might be willing to get rid of McCarthy to actually make Moore the head coach. I can see it happening.
But I have to ask the question: is losing Kellen Moore a bad thing?
I mean, I don't think so. But,
Okay.
I I need to I just got a text from my wife. I need to help her out with something real quick. So I'm going to go solo. So I know you had some basketball stuff you wanted to talk about. So if you want to just talk about that real
I've
quick
got
while
something else to
I
talk
call
about.
her.
Have at it.
Yeah, so I'll be back
I've got
momentarily.
I've got something I want to talk about in the wide world of sports, not related to basketball or football. So I'll be glad to discuss that here momentarily. Yes. So now that I am solo, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who watch professional wrestling, sports entertainment, whatever the heck you want to call it, there was a travesty that happened on Wednesday night to Death Triangle. They lost the 6-man tag championships to the Elite, or the AWVPs, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. What makes this a travesty is Omega and the Young Bucks were the original people anointed to have the belts, but then they got into the altercation with CM Punk and got stripped of the titles, as CM Punk got stripped of the AEW championship as well. So you have to drag it out to a win by Death Triangle, who is Penta, the Bastard Pac, right? And Penta's brother, Ray Phoenix, by the way, for those of you who may not be 100% aware. You make them go through a match. They win a match. They win it by nefarious deeds, but this is wrestling. This happens all the time, and this doesn't happen. Then you put them in a best of 7 series of matches. Then you have Death Triangle go up 3-1. Then you turn around and have them lose the last 3 matches to give the elite, the EVPs of the company, back the trios championships. If this was the outcome, what was the point of having a series of matches? Follow me here. They fought them when they returned on their first match. You could have just let them beat them then. That'd have been hype, pomp and circumstance, balloons, everybody loving the league coming back, winning championships. But Tony Khan, in a very questionable booking decision, had them go to 7 and had Death Triangle, who had looked pretty unstoppable up until that point, as a trio, lose to the elite. Back to the status quo. The guys who have the ranks, who have the influence, giving themselves championships. And that's pretty much what happened here. Very disappointed in that. I felt there was a better way if you wanted to take the belts off of them, some type of multi-team match where they didn't have to be pinned or they didn't have to lose like they did in the 7th with the belts hanging above the ring. It's just not the way that you take the belts off of what was your dominant trios team and your other team fumbled their bag emotionally and mentally and had to be sent home. So in the future, Tony Khan, do a better job of doing what you want to do, because sometimes it's not the outcome, it's the path that you take to get to the outcome that people like myself are not pleased with. Don't make Death Triangle jump through 50 hoops to do what you want to do anyway. Just do it. And I see my co-host has returned. So we will continue.
Yeah, so I didn't get to hear what you were talking about, but I assume the AEW did something you were not very happy with.
Oh yes.
So yeah, man, just so going back to this conversation, because we actually haven't had a chance to talk about coaches that got fired yet, and what might be going on there. So right now, the teams that are going to be looking for coaches, the Carolina Panthers, obviously fired their coach a while back. The Indianapolis Colts, who also fired their coach a while back. The Denver Broncos, who also fired their coach a while back. The Arizona Cardinals, who just fired their coach. And the Houston Texans, who also just fired their coach for the second year in a row after one season. And one team is now going to be looking for a coach, apparently, is the LA Rams, because Sean McVay has said that he is going to come back next season. So,
Yep.
Most of those obviously aren't surprises. I don't think the Cardinals is a surprise, right? Cliff Kingsbury clearly should have been fired. But I'm going to be critical of the Cardinals here for a couple things. So one is, why did you give this dude an extension last year? I mean, we talked about it at the beginning of this year. We both saw this year coming, right? I mean, I don't think either one of us would have necessarily thought the Cardinals were going to be as bad as they were. And I think at least for part of that, you have to take into account the fact that they had a lot of injuries, including Kyler Murray being out for a good chunk of the season, and D-Hop being suspended for 6 games. I think you do have to at least account for those things, right? But this is a team that we saw kind of fading this year a little bit anyways. I don't really understand why you gave him this big extension. And we said at the time that you signed Kyler Murray to his big deal that it was too big. Like, he hadn't earned that deal. And now you're going to try to convince somebody who come and coach this team knowing that they are stuck with Kyler Murray. I think that's a hard sell, man.
You left out a very, very important piece to that puzzle.
Okay.
Not only do you have to convince a coach to come to the team, but you also have to convince a general manager to come and manage that team.
This is also true. Yes.
So the question is, the chicken or the egg? The general manager, the coach. Who do you hire first?
I mean, unless you're going to do similar to what we did in San Francisco with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, where they kind of came in together. There was two guys that wanted to work together. I feel like you have to do the GM first. You cannot go out and pick a head coach and then saddle a GM with the coach that you're already saddling with a quarterback that they may or may not want.
I would 100% agree with that. Um, Not an appealing job, but it is more appealing than one other job out there because you could, as you said, if you are a head coach and you have a certain guy who you really think you would be a great fit with GM wise, you have that opportunity to have this synergy there because they're going to be hiring for both of those positions. But there's one job I would say it's definitely worse.
What would that be, sir?
That would be the Houston Trashtons.
It's a pretty bad job. Yeah, at least the one positive with Houston is you do have some draft picks to work with there.
So the report is Jonathan Gannon is their number one option.
For those who might just be listening, can't see my co-host over here doing Hail Marys.
We'll go ahead and
He
make
is
it three.
not.
Go ahead and make
He
it
is
three.
not. He is not a Jonathan Gannon fan. He is
Not
hoping that somebody steals Jonathan Gannon away.
hoping, wishing, and praying that somebody steals Jonathan Gannon away from the Philadelphia Eagles in this offseason. And I would not mind it being the Texans because, hey, if you're going to leave us, doesn't matter. I'm not upset if you go somewhere and suck, right? Like Frank Wright left us when he got fired in Indianapolis. Ha Frank. We'll take you back as an OC maybe next year if we need one, but ha Frank.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, at least with that job, you do at least have some draft picks to work with. Um, we'll see kind of what happens there. I think the big question there is, if you're a coach taking that job, you're like, hey, where's the loyalty at, right? Like, what what assurance do I have I'm getting more than a season to turn this thing around? Because let's be honest, this roster is not built to compete this year.
If you are a coach of color, don't do it. Reconsider.
But
Read some letter.
you know
On the
one
subject.
one coach already told them no. D'Amico Ryans, they said they wanted to interview him. D'Amico Ryans was like, nah, I'm good. We'll pass.
Read some letter. Share on the subject. Y'all better take that D'Amico Ryan's thing if you coach of color. They don't last but one season around those parts.
Yeah. Hey, look,
That
we'll
ain't
find
even
out
enough to
next
boost
year.
your resume.
Look, we'll find out next year. They might not even the white coach might not have a better chance, but definitely some red flags out there. Now, to me, when I look at the Colts job, right?
But before we leave the Texas job, there's one thing I have to say.
Okay.
Shout out to Lovey Smith. If I know you're gonna screw me over, I'm gonna screw you out of the number one pick too. Big ups, Lovey. Big ups.
Yeah, I don't know for a fact what came first, right? I don't know if Lovey knew he was on the way out and decided to screw them on the way, or if they decided to fire Lovey because he got rid of the number one pick. But I like to imagine a world in which he knew beforehand or had a pretty good idea what was going to happen, and he decided to send one big "fu" on the way out the door. That's the world I like to live in. I don't know which is factual, but that's the world I live in.
That is the only world that I live in. Yes.
But yeah, so the Colts job. Uh, this is a tough one, man. Like you really don't have a quarterback. Uh, not really sure what your running back's gonna be able to bounce back. What he's gonna look like next year, right? You have a really good defense. You have a pretty good offensive line. Jeff Saturday is clearly not that dude.
What
So
do you mean? Just because he lost 7 games in a row, we don't want to be a head coach? So?
So I don't know, man. Like this isn't a bad job, right? Like I feel like if you can get the right quarterback in there, you might be able to do something with this team, right? But yeah, this job only looks appealing right now in my mind because of the other openings.
I don't think it's that appealing personally. You don't have a quarterback. You have, I think, a really good defense that underperformed because the staff is trash. Um, you have running backs, multiple running backs, right? You have running backs. Um, but the thing is, if we're being real, I said this and I still believe this. Jeff Saturday is going to get a job in that front office this off season. This was his trial by fire. They didn't care if he won or not. He coached. He had some experience being a head coach, so now he can go into the front office and be one of the guys that helps make those decisions moving forward because he's done it. That was my take the whole entire time. Knew this was not going to be good. The coach knew this was not going to be good. That's why they did it. And the thing is, the elusive quarterback. You've got a lot of other pieces, but you got decent wide receivers as well. You got tight ends, but you don't have a pass through. I'm not going to say pretty much. I'm going to say you don't have a starting caliber quarterback on your roster. Matt Ryan is done. He's playing like he's 98 years old. Okay. Nick Foles, you tried Foles magic. If he's not wearing midnight hunter green, it doesn't work. And Ellinger, he's a pup, not ready for the role he was thrust into. I don't like to count guys out after 1 year, but didn't see a lot from him this year. So you have to figure out the quarterback situation. And as an organization, you've already came out and said you don't move Derek Carr. I think that was stupid for several reasons. Even if you didn't want him, I'd have feigned interest just to make whoever does get him have to give up a little bit more because they scared that you're in the bidding for him to make another team a little bit worse. You didn't play one-upsmanship. You came out. Your owner was probably drunk when he told you to say that, and you said it. So, I really don't think it's that great of a job. So, a lot of people may have a difference of opinion, but I think it's a cluster cluck there as well. And I would want that job if I was a coach. And if I was a quarterback, I wouldn't want to go there as a free agent unless you are paying me bukus a post, as the outcasts say.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that this job obviously has going for it is they right now do have a fourth pick, so they can draft a quarterback, and they can even maybe give up a little something to try to move up. Maybe they can give up a little bit, swap with the Bears for that number one pick, and be able to get the quarterback that they want. So they can get a franchise quarterback. Now, the problem that they have in my mind is that even if you go get your franchise quarterback, you ain't got no franchise wide receivers.
I think Pittman can be a franchise wide receiver.
Okay, so you maybe have one.
I don't think anybody else can be a franchise wide receiver.
Yeah, you need somebody to throw the football too, right? I mean, look at Jacksonville. I mean, yes, I still say they overpaid for this year. Um, but they got production out of their wide receivers this year, and one thing a lot of people aren't talking about with Jacksonville, everybody kind of forgetting, if he actually gets reinstated, they traded for Calvin Ridley.
They did.
So, that could be huge for them next year. Uh, and you have to remember that's a team that's inside this division that the Colts are going to be competing in. So you need to go get playmakers on this team. So to me, you either have to go out and get a quarterback in with this number four pick, or you have to trade up and get somebody, or you're gonna have to go get a guy like Derek Carr in free agency, which, like you said, was stupid that you already told people that you're not interested in him. Or you're gonna have to draft a quarterback and go try to get some wide receivers in free agency, right? Because you can't not have those two things. And then obviously you need some offensive line help as well. But until you get a quarterback and somebody to throw the ball to, man, it's not gonna get any better.
So here's the thing with the way they're set up. You need linemen, you need quarterback, you need at least probably 1 to 2 wide receivers because there's one other kid, the rookie, that I can't remember his name now. He's pretty good. He's probably like a slot receiver, third or fourth receiver. He's decent. But if you go out right now and you draft the best quarterback available at 4, to say, right? We know Chicago's not going to take a quarterback with the #1 pick. So worst case, if you have 3 quarterbacks that you like, you're going to get one of them if you stay put. If I were you, I would trade the #4 pick and trade down to around 8 to 10. You probably gain, depending on how the book goes, you probably gain a future first rounder and maybe a late round pick this year for it or a mid round pick. That allows you to narrow down the group that you want a little bit more. Some of those guys are going to go at the top. It allows you to look at linemen, allows you to look at wide receivers, and still be in a good spot. Because real talk, I like Stroud the best out of the quarterbacks that are coming out, but that's out of his peers. That
Yep.
doesn't mean I think he's amazing. I think he's a solid starter in the
Yep.
NFL at some point. But do you want him on a team that doesn't have linemen, doesn't have the dearth of quality wide receivers that you would want your young quarterback to have? And questions that coach, are you going to be able to bring in a guy that's going to be able to develop him? Do you want all those things going on? Or do you want to just say, you know what, we're going to take this coming year, we're going to build all the other positions up. All the other problems that we have, let's try to address those. So that the following year, if we're not better, and we can't go find a guy like a Gardner Minshew who's going to be available, we're not going to franchise tag him, obviously, that can come in, play in the right system, and be your guy while you figure out if Ellinger is maybe the guy in 2 to 3 years, well, 1 or 2 years now because he's already had a year, or do you need to go out and draft somebody else? So that's also an approach that maybe they could take. Go out and get like a B tier quarterback and try to fix some of those other problems.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, when you look at the quarterback free agent market, right? Obviously, you got Derek Carr out there. You
But
also,
he's, but you know, he
yeah,
has the trade clause, so
yeah, oh
no
yeah,
trade
we
clause.
have to
Yeah.
trade for him. Yeah. Marcus Mariota is probably going to be available.
Oh, he's definitely going to be available.
Yeah, uh, Jimmy
But
Garoppolo.
Do you want another Atlanta quarterback though?
Jimmy Garoppolo is another name that's going to be out there and available for you. Because I don't see him coming back to San Francisco, and he's an unrestricted free agent. You don't have to give up anything for him. Uh, Tom Brady's going to be out there, but we all know Tom Brady's not going to Indianapolis. So Billy V says the Cardinals took Rosen, then the following year took Kyler, so it's possible the Bears could go QB. Um, while I hear what you're saying, Billy, I'm going to point out the very obvious. Justin Fields is infinitely better than Josh Rosen. Not even close. The Cardinals also brought in a coach specifically for the purpose of drafting Kyler Murray and allowing him to play in the same system he played in college. I do not see the Bears moving on from Justin Fields.
I will say this: if they're going to move on for Justin Fields, they would do it before the draft, and they would get probably a nice package for him. If he's there by the draft, I don't think he's going anywhere because you have to make a decision at that point. You got to draw a line in the sand, and you have to get the draft picks to use to go grab a quarterback. I mean, the draft picks so that you can go ahead and use that first pick on whatever quarterback you want. I don't see that happening, but you do make a valid point, Billy V, because I mean it has happened before. They don't have a coach, so we don't know if the Bears do have a coach. I'm thinking of the Colts. Um, we don't know if the coach likes the style that Justin Fields plays or not. So there could be that, and you could feel like more comfortable with keeping your coach than the quarterback. So there's that you did spend a lot to get him though, so it'll be interesting. I don't think they do it, but hey, we don't really know.
Yeah, honestly, man, I feel like the Bears are either going to take a pass rusher at number one, they're going to take
They
an
better
edge
take a
guy,
they better take an offensive lineman and one.
or I think they're going to trade that number one pick and they're going to get them a bounty of picks, and they're going to wisely invest it in their offensive and defensive lines.
Can we change that bounty of picks to a plethora of picks?
Yes, yes, bounty plethora,
Perfect.
whatever
Perfect.
cornucopia of picks if you like.
It works. It
So,
works as
so
well.
Billy did say agreed, but I think Fields is the guy for them, or don't think he doesn't think that Fields is the guy.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't think Fields is the guy for them, then it does make sense to say we're going to draft a quarterback. But you might as well go ahead and get rid of Fields before the draft, so that way you don't have that lingering there, right?
Yep.
That's all I'm saying. If it's going to happen, I mean, I personally, Billy V, feel like they should trade him because they're just going to waste their young man.
Yep. I mean, I think from the Chicago standpoint, they would be stupid to trade him, right? I think that if you just give him an offensive line, you put weapons around him, he has the talent, he can develop, and he can actually be a really good quarterback for you. But from the Justin Fields point of view, I hope they trade him because, like you said, they're gonna get that guy killed. Like he's not running because he can't throw the ball. He's running because he has nobody to throw the ball to.
He's running because he can't throw the ball, but it's
Yep.
not because he can't throw the
Yeah.
ball.
He's capable of throwing the football,
Yes,
but in
but
this
he can't throw
offense,
the
he
ball.
can't do it.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty
Yeah.
much.
But yeah, I mean, it's always interesting to hear their perspective because I know Billy's a Lions fan. So it is always fun to just kind of hear that perspective from people who get to see somebody twice a year and just kind of see what their thoughts are on it. Which,
And Billy V, man, congrats on your lines, bro. That was a very impressive season.
yeah,
And I think a lot of people are going to hold y'all in high regard for making sure Green Bay did not make the playoffs.
um, and I do remember two guys, say that they saw the Lions finishing somewhere in that like 7 to 9 win range. So you know, not too surprised by where they ended up. There was a point in the season where we didn't think they were going to end up there, but yeah, much props for the run they went on there at the end of the season. They've obviously, our team they're going to have a nice draft pick sitting at number 6, thanks to the Rams, and then they have their own first round pick as well. So no, this is a team that's already got a lot of talent, and they're going to get a chance to add a good player at 6. I think they're definitely a playoff contender this year.
Shout out to Billy V too, because he said that this team would be a playoff contender. We weren't quite sold on that piece, but shout out to you because you obviously were right. One more win in that stretch where they didn't play really well, and we're having a different discussion right now.
I just want to point out because I know that if Craig is listening to the show, whether live or replay, I know this is going to drive him absolutely crazy when I say it. Uh, Billy, it's the Giants' fault that you didn't make the playoffs. All they had to do was beat Seattle. If they had beat Seattle, you would be in the playoffs. That's the reason you didn't get in because the Giants didn't help you out. So blame the Giants for not making the playoffs.
This guy, this guy.
I might be a little bit bitter about the Giants resting all their starters when we had a chance to get the number 1 seed in Week 18.
Oh, you might be a little bit bitter.
Yeah, I might be.
I told you what was gonna happen. It's the only thing that made sense.
I knew it was going to happen. I was still upset about it though. Billy says, "Yeah, man, y'all were clowning my Lions when I said they would compete." No, Billy, we said the Lions win 7 to 9 games. We were clowning you when you said you would make the playoffs.
Which you almost made us eat crow on. You're very close to making us eat crow. So I'm
So,
acknowledging
so I
that.
give I give you credit
Yeah,
that y'all
yeah,
did almost pull that off. Okay,
yeah, yeah.
but don't be trying to act like we said y'all were going to be complete
Right.
garbage.
We
We
say
just
I was gonna be like 5 games, man. Come
yeah
on now.
Yeah, I mean, and in all honesty, man, I just didn't think that 8 or 9 wins was gonna get you in the playoffs. I didn't know the NFC was gonna be this bad this year.
Right. Like, yeah, I was a little shocked that that was um, there, for the taking for so many people. But hey, if everybody's bad around you, then you just got to be a little bit better than the bad people. You still good.
But you know what, man? I do want to point this out too, because I think so. We just got through talking to all these coaches that got fired or whatever, and we do still have one other team to talk about. That's the Carolina Panthers. But I do want to just real quick acknowledge and give the Lions credit for this. In a day and age where everyone is so quick to fire their coach, get rid of people, the Lions are what 1-7, and they held on to Dan Campbell. They saw what the team could become. They didn't succumb to the pressure of, oh, you have to win now and all this other stuff. And they gave him a chance to right the ship, and he did. So, I give the organization a lot of credit and respect for being willing to actually stick with a guy because a lot
Unlike
of
the
people
Houston
don't do that.
Texans.
Yes. 'Cause a lot of people don't do that now. So you gotta acknowledge that when people do.
Yeah, you do. You do.
Yeah, so I mean, you're there in Carolina, man. You hear a lot about this team. Is this an attractive job?
So I'm gonna say the same thing that I say about um, Billy V says it was 1-6, sir. Correct that. But
I stand corrected. My apologies.
um, Charlotte is not a top tier destination, right? As a franchise, as a city, the Hornets and the Panthers, you don't get the big time free agents that come. You don't get the big time coaches that come, right? You haven't gotten a big name coach in the history of this iteration of the Hornets, right? You haven't had like a big name coach even really consider the Panthers job when it's become open. The last time you had to go to the college ranks and get a guy that ended up being trash to be the coach. So the thing that I would say if I were someone that had any decision making within the Panthers organization, you got a guy here. Team looked really good with him for the remainder of the year. He's already had his dress rehearsal. Let's hire him. Give him a couple of years. You know, see what he can do with the offseason draft picks and implementing everything he wants to with the people that he wants to have on his staff. That would be the most logical thing to do because again, it's not a destination where people are like, I will go to Carolina and be the head coach, right? You just got a head coach a couple of years back, and there wasn't a lot of people lining up of great head coaches or even solid head coaches saying, I'll come to the Carolina Panthers and be the coach. You could go the way of a coordinator, but you've already had a guy there who has some experience coaching before, got a raw deal before, has coached the team, has the locker room. Why would you even consider messing it up? Obviously, you don't want to hire him yet. You want to at least interview a few people, but
Yeah.
unless somebody really comes in and just blows you away, knocks your socks, your drawers, and everything off, you got to go with the guy who already knows the team.
Yeah, and the thing is, man, I feel like when you talk about a team that's kind of in a rebuild, and let's be legitimate, they're in a rebuild, right? Um, and you got the ninth pick in the draft. You're probably not going to be able to draft that franchise quarterback with that pick. So, you're kind of got to go. Do we have a guy on the roster right now that maybe can get there, that we can develop and build up, right? But what I see is it just makes sense to keep him, right? This is the one interim coach that I actually think should get the head coaching job because, as you said, he's already had experience. He got a little bit of a raw deal. This is a team that everyone just assumed was folding it in and giving up after they traded two of their best players, and they didn't. They actually competed up until the loss to the Bucks. They were in contention to actually win this division, and that was a close game. It's not like they got blown out by Tampa. So this was a team that went out there and competed when everyone just assumed that they were going to fold it in and basically be trying to get that number one pick. So I say give him a chance because if nothing else, man, he understands what's in that locker room already. He knows those guys. He understands what he has to work with, right? You go and bring in a hot name right now, right? Even if like one of the big names is willing to come in and be your coach, they're going to be a first time coach, right? And so now they're coming in, they're learning how to be a coach. They have to learn the team and all this other stuff. You're basically starting from scratch when you already have a guy who has head coaching experience, is already showing you that the players support him, and he understands what you have and already has an idea of probably what he would like to do with this roster going forward. To me, it's a no-brainer. If Carolina hires anybody else, I don't care if it's D'Amico Ryans. I don't care if it's Airbnb. I don't unless you go out and somehow convince Sean Payton to come coach for you. I think any hire other than Steve Wilkes is a very bad look for the Carolina Panthers.
Well, looks like we agreed on at least one thing.
Yeah. Billy, I think every quarterback on that roster is a free agent this year.
Yeah, Darnold's a free agent.
Yep.
They extended him wrongfully.
Yes. Yes. He's a free agent. What about your other boy? I cannot think of his name right now.
PJ Walker.
Yeah, PJ Walker.
I don't know if he's a free agent or not, but it feels like they'll never really give him a shot.
Yeah. No, I agree, but like I guess the question is,
They go get Taylor Heineke.
yeah, would he be a bridge quarterback, right? Like that would be kind of my question. Is he be a bridge
He
quarterback?
could. I think he could be. From what I saw when he did play this year, I think he could be. Again, in the right system.
Oh, by the way, I'm sure you've heard this. I've heard it from a couple of Panthers fans as well. So let me just go and put this out here for y'all real quick. Let me say it nice and slow for you. You are not getting Lamar Jackson. Just stop it.
Here's the truth of the matter with the whole Lamar Jackson situation. Lamar Jackson is not leaving the Ravens unless you're giving up a king's bounty. Because you got to remember, the next 2 years, they can franchise him. They are going to franchise Lamar Jackson if they don't come to some agreement on a long-term deal. They're going to franchise him. They may trade him after they franchise him. But if you want Lamar Jackson, you better get the broomstick. You better get the petroleum jelly, not the Vaseline, the petroleum jelly, and the baby oil. Because you will need that broomstick to be really lubed for what's about to happen. If you think you're going to get Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, so just figured I'd throw that out there real quick. But man, we are actually a little bit over time for this evening. Any parting thoughts that you want to leave the people with tonight?
Kia NBA MVP number one, 𝐂𝐿 Jokic, Denver Nuggets, top team, one of the top teams out west. Let's go.
Hey, I can't disagree with what you said on that one. I have him at the top of my MVP list right now as well. So definitely agree. Shout out to everyone who tuned in, joined us tonight. Special shout out to those who actually joined us in the chat. If you would like to join us live, you can do so every Friday night, starting at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on playcallersportstalk.com/live. And otherwise, if you want to just be able to listen to the show, you can also catch us on your favorite podcast network. Coming here as soon as the distribution for that starts to go out. So,
Oh, and if you're buying things from Fanatics, right? The simplest way. This is what I do when I buy things from Fanatics. 'Cause of course, I'm going to support my own stuff. playcallersportstalk.com/fanatics.
yep.
Stroll on through. Get whatever you want. If you have any other discount codes, you still got a place to put them in. Get your boys get off that table a little bit. Let's go.
Yeah, because the thing is with that link, what that does is it
He froze. Long story short, The link just makes sure that they know that you went through Play Callers.
This
So that's a
kills
little bit of a
fanatics.
backpack. Oh,
My co-host just froze up there on me, so I'm not sure exactly what happened.
haha, you froze up
But
on me too.
I think what he was just trying to say there is Blink doesn't cost you anything extra to use, but it does help us out. So we'd appreciate if you used it. And we will see y'all next Friday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go Niners.